Okay, great. All right, so Karen, thank you for taking the time to join me today. You obviously have an impressive background in leading global employee benefits, wellness, and well-being functions as at some of the top organizations in this area, such as 14 years at Boston Consulting Group, 4 years at CDM Smith, almost 7 years at Digitas, 6 years at Fidelity. So you've obviously got an outstanding body of work. You're currently in transition and open to hearing about new amazing career opportunities, which is great and exciting. But you're also uniquely qualified to discuss the state of the benefits and wellness function today and where it's headed in the future. To that end, I have a few questions for you, if you'll indulge me. All right.
Thank you for this opportunity, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. So as the Director of Benefits and Wellbeing at Boston Consulting Group, BCG, one of the most prestigious consulting organizations in the world, how were you able to consistently offer competitive, progressive benefits and wellness programs to a diverse workforce spread out in 100 offices and 50 plus countries?
Yeah. So the key at BCG was we established early on global benefits and well-being strategy, as well as a philosophy aligned with the firm's values. People at BCG were our asset. We were selling people's ideas, their knowledge to help employers and governments and organizations all over the world. So we were very interested in offering a benefits package to attract high-performing individuals and to find a way to support them at all stages of their personal and professional life. It was a demanding industry, and ensuring that people felt cared for was central to that philosophy and our strategy. We also had a centralized governance and oversight put in place. Benefits were managed locally, but as part of our global framework, we wanted to ensure that there was a minimum standard across all of our locations to ensure a similar foundation of benefits, or benefits, I should say, regardless of what country an employee worked in. However, since the delivery model of benefits is so different and unique across the globe, it was never our intent to offer the same exact benefits package everywhere, but instead to allow for flexibility at the local level to ensure that employees' needs were met and that the benefits rate remained competitive in that market. So beyond the core offering, the core included insurance programs, retirement, leave of absence programs. Additional benefits could be added by local HR to meet the needs of that specific market. And the local office was responsible for securing the coverage, for administering the plans, and then what the team I was part of, the Global Benefits and Wellbeing Center of Expertise, did is we worked as global benefit advisors, for really internal consultants to BCG's offices around the world to ensure that their benefits were compliant, that they remained competitive, and that they were delivered in the most cost-effective manner. We kept locations informed of trends, introduced them to innovative solutions over the years to find ways to address needs or gaps in the market. And then in locations where those minimum standards couldn't be met because the office was very small or the market was not very mature in the insurance space, our team would work with our preferred insurers, with our multinational pooling partners, as well as our external consultant to negotiate enhanced terms and conditions and to find ways to deliver benefits at that base level that we required across the globe. And then I would just add that we worked really closely with our HR and finance counterparts around the world to understand that we truly understood their needs, to help them communicate benefits to employees, find ways to make them accessible, understandable. We also worked jointly with leadership in the local offices on benefit approvals. I mentioned a global oversight and governance. So as part of that, we would work with them to ensure that all benefits decisions were reviewed, again, aligned with the philosophy, didn't potentially put them out of alignment and cause potential issues with other offices across the globe. And I'd say the other way that we ensured that benefits remained competitive and relevant, so was to ensure that employees understood what they were and to understand which benefits employees were utilizing and which ones were meeting their needs and where there might be gaps. So we began to expand our benefits beyond the core offering to include well-being. We also rolled out a technology platform towards the end of my tenure there as a way to streamline administration, help build awareness about the benefits offerings, and to enhance communications.
Hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. No, that's great. And my sense is that you would pretty consistently maybe solicit feedback, via surveys or what have you from the employee population that potentially might go into some of that decision making?
We did a people survey every year, which was around employee engagement, and there were questions specific around benefits at a very high level. Local offices would often ask for feedback directly from employees to, again, find out where the gaps and specific needs were.
Great. No, thank you for that. That's fantastic. And I know it's such a competitive landscape the last couple of years in terms of attracting talent and so forth. So really having a high functioning benefit offerings and so forth really make a difference in terms of attracting talent. So next question. So there's obviously a new focus, well, not renewed focus on employee physical, mental, and emotional well-being, particularly post-COVID. What are some of the benefits and well-being trends emerging as it relates to programs offered by organizations to support existing on-site staff as well as expanding fully remote workforces?
Sure, yeah, we definitely learned through the Great Resignation as we were coming out of the pandemic that employees are prioritizing what's important to them, including their mental, physical, and financial well-being. So there are a lot of trends, there are a lot of solutions available in the marketplace. Sometimes it can be dizzying navigating all of that. And what I would caution is before making any changes to benefits and well-being offering, as we were just saying, employers should be clear what exactly is important to their employees. Sometimes I find, and I know I've been guilty of it too, that employers can under or overvalue benefits and not be aligned with what's important to employees. So I really recommend that employers survey their remote, hybrid, on-site employees to understand what's important to them, because each group is going to have distinct and unique needs. And having said that, I'd say work-life harmony tends to be a top priority for employees, and probably more so now as many people are beginning to navigate returning to work or the possibility of returning to the office in some manner. And I believe that benefits that help employees manage their home and their personal life will be a top priority. So there's a few ways that employers can help employees achieve more harmony. And that's through flexibility, support for caregivers, as well as help with personal responsibilities. So if employers haven't already done so, and I know quite a few reacted right as a result of the pandemic to implement more flexible work arrangements, to allow for more flexible work hours, to allow for both in-person and remote workers. Some employers are even implementing work from anywhere policies. And these arrangements really help encourage a more inclusive and welcoming environment and are really open to various work styles and lifestyles. And during the last 3 years, employees have really adapted to flex their work hours around their family, around things like fitness and personal responsibilities. And most of us don't want to give that up, right? So providing flexibility is going to be key in how, when, and where work will continue. Caregiving, the pandemic's shown a light on that. There's been a ton of information in the media about that and the gaps that were identified. So as we think about moving more people to hybrid or partial on-site work or returning to work full-time, employers need to think about different caregiving arrangements, and that includes pets. a lot of people, right? Adopted
Right.
new
Yeah.
friends during the pandemic and haven't had to deal with arranging for care. So are there solutions through organizations like care.com or Helper that could offer unique solutions to employees as individuals begin to navigate working in different ways?
Mm-hmm.
I think stipends for home office equipment and internet are going to remain top priorities for employees.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one way that employers can support both caregiving and those work from home arrangements, and that's through lifestyle accounts. Those are really gaining popularity. They help employers fund employees' everyday needs and expenses in a really easy way without having to manage in-house reimbursements, without having to manage multiple vendors. And while they've been around for some time, they really caught employees' attention, I think, during the pandemic as a way to fund stipends from work from home for things like meal vouchers. And now they're garnering even more attention as a way to attract and retain talent as personalization of benefits becomes more and more common and important to individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So these can be used for anything. Employers can really dictate what type of expenses they want to cover. They can use it, employees can use it for things like childcare, pet care, tutoring, meal expenses, commuting as they begin to return to work and have new expenses that may not have had if they moved further away from the office.
Right. Yeah.
And I think another way that employers can help employees achieve more balance is providing a benefit like a life concierge. Overalls is an organization I just became familiar with that provides a way for employees to outsource their to-do list and get help with things like scheduling doctor's appointments, finding a cat groomer who makes home visits, or a summer camp for your children, things that are time consuming, take away from employees' focus at work. So in addition to helping employees save time and stress, it can really help increase productivity. And all of these programs, as you were saying just a little while ago, it's important to show employees you care, right? And all of these programs really give a sense to an employee that an employer cares about their life outside of work and wants to help them be at their best when they are at work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because we have a lot of clients that are struggling a little bit with keeping a balance in terms of not only benefits but compensation for individuals that need to be on site versus others where there's more flexibility. So I think that's going to be a continuing challenge, for organizations to be able to balance that. When there's a requirement for somebody to be on site, let's say even 5 days a week, whether they're engineers, manufacturing, folks, whatever it may be, versus the remote. But it's interesting in terms of that account for, contributing to the expenses that people require or incur when they're at home. It's something we certainly talk about as well, because most of our workforce is remote too. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things land. I'd say of our clients, most of them are hybrid. Most of them have a hybrid arrangement, and that can mean anything. That could mean just come into the market or the office when you need to. And that could be once every 2 weeks or once every 3 weeks. But that's where everything seems to be falling, is that hybrid mode. We certainly have companies that are fully remote, more so than we used to. And then there are still companies that require 5 days a week on site. So
yeah. So one size fits all, to your point, around comp, around benefits, around learning and development. A lot of the traditional models have to be rethought. And there does need to be a little bit more flexibility and not so much black and white in how we address these different issues. I think another area that I see employers struggling in is creating a sense of community. If you have people working in different places, some coming to the office, others not, how do you ensure that there is a sense of community? And it's funny because I get the sense that employers may value in-person or virtual gatherings more than employees do at this point. And while employees may not want to attend another virtual gathering or a happy hour organized by the employer, I think a lot of us miss those connections, right? So is there a way to help employees foster their own community, to
Mhm.
coordinate their own gatherings, their own meetups with employees who might be working from home near them, right?
Mm.
Or while they're traveling on business in a way that's convenient for them to do so. And that
Mm.
there are, again, some tools and some solutions like collaborative approach that allow employees to do that. So I think that might be another area that employers need to look in. How do you balance connection without making it yet another obligation
Mm.
that
Mm.
people feel it's eating into their time, and it's yet another Zoom call. They would prefer to be doing something else.
Right, right, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. And I think as long as employees feel like there's a real value in what's being asked of them, whether it be a Zoom call or whether it be
Yeah.
coming into an event or whatever it might be, as long as there's some level of engagement beyond just, well, we're kind of checking a box, let's just
Yeah.
sort of do this, then I think you have buy-in, because we certainly talk to a lot of candidates and starting to shift a lot more now where their preference is to go into the office.
Mhm.
Now, granted, it's not across all demographics, but at the end of the day, people want to have more of that social interaction. And it's just such an individual, it's an interesting question that's going to continue on as we go here. But
Yeah, it really is interesting and not a conversation that we probably imagined having 4 years ago.
yeah, yes, please. I mean, we were not prepared when COVID hit us. So, well, thank you for that. And yeah, so next question, kind of, as an HR search firm, Wilmot and Associates is, dedicated to identifying, connecting with diverse, inclusive candidate base.
Yeah.
What are some of the issues facing benefits leaders as they look to offer programs that, better reflect and support an increasingly more diverse employee population?
Yeah, and we could probably talk about this all day.
Mm.
So I'll try to keep it brief. Um, I actually was looking at a survey that Buck did in 2022 on well-being and voluntary benefits. And in that survey, the research showed that more than a third of employees who were surveyed didn't feel as though their company was committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, even though everybody's talking about it and saying they are. So this could indicate, right, that efforts to date are not viewed as genuine. And that research also showed that 35% of employees were considering changing jobs and were more likely to leave if they felt as though different cultures, backgrounds weren't respected, if they felt there was no demonstrated company commitment to DEI, and if the benefit offerings didn't meet a diverse population.
Mm.
So there's a lot of ways that employers can improve upon their benefits offerings and enhance coverage with a view on DEI priorities. Employers can have a tremendous impact on the well-being of employees and their family members just by bringing a DEI lens to all their benefits. And that means there's some easy things that can be done right away. First step, if it hasn't already been done, is to update all HR policies to make them more inclusive, to use inclusive language to reflect the diverse workforce. The second thing is employers really need to understand the challenges and the inequities that their employees are facing. It's critical for them to not only understand that for their current employee population, but also to understand the demographic needs of the talent that they hope to recruit in the future. So really be forward thinking and not reactive.
Mm.
I think there's some key areas, and like I said, I could talk about probably each of these and at great length, but some key areas where I think additional support can be made and can be done for low cost
Mm-hmm.
is around caregiving, supporting people from a financial perspective and helping them with tools and education, being more inclusive in your health and well-being benefits, and then I'll talk a little bit more about that. Gender affirmation procedures and drug coverage should be added to benefit programs, additional mental health support, and ensuring that employees are being reached in the way that works for them. Flexibility we've talked about already. Additional leaves of absences for people to support their family needs, to support them through times of stress, burnout, emotional and mental health issues. I think expanding coverage for family building for all types of families. And I mentioned LSAs earlier, lifestyle account. Those can help offset for economic disparities that might exist in the workforce. So again, not one size fits all, but perhaps providing reimbursable services for things like childcare, for meals, for elder care, things that might alleviate pressure on lower income employees. I mentioned I was going to talk a little bit more about inclusive health and well-being benefits. It's an area I'm really passionate about. And I think ensuring that programs meet the diverse needs of a mix of people is critical to ensure they're treated fairly, ensure they have access to the care that they need, and providers with whom they feel comfortable. And another study or piece of data I saw recently showed that more than 40% of the LGBTQ community reported that they'd experienced discrimination by a healthcare provider, so therefore they don't trust and avoid care. They're actually 2 to 3 times more likely to avoid care than straight or cisgendered individuals. And additional research has showed that Black patients are more likely to have better healthcare outcomes when they're treated by Black providers. Again, there's a comfort level there and a trust. So ensuring that your health and mental health care network include diverse providers is critical. Not having access to individuals who people feel comfortable with can be a barrier to care, especially with mental health. So there's some organizations, again, who focus on this specifically, organizations like Included Health, make networks available for both the LGBTQ community as well as people of color. And then employers are starting to push their own insurers to broaden and diversify their networks and to make tools available where people can search for and filter on the networks and find providers who might be the right racial profile, ethnicity, gender. So again, I think that that's a really important area that employers need to focus on. Family building also falls into that inclusion area. A lot of traditional health plans have, I think, unintentional inequities written into them. And it's really important that they cover necessary and essential healthcare services for transgender individuals, including inclusive family building support, and that employers should review those policies and look for gaps that might exist, push their insurers again to address gender dysphoria, ensure coverage for things like hormone suppression and surgical procedures, including facial feminization surgery. These benefits often are considered elective cosmetic procedures under plans. So again, ensuring that employers take a look and see if those exclusions exist and if they can be rectified. And the last way to focus on inclusivity and your health and well-being offerings is to ensure that your policies for new parents are inclusive as well. And I'd add to that, I think you can have the most inclusive benefits in place, but if your employees are not feeling psychologically safe at work, if they don't think that they can bring diversity to thought, they don't think they can bring their authentic selves to work, then all the changes in your benefits strategy are not going to be enough. So I think it's also important to focus on building awareness around issues and challenges that other individuals and groups may be facing in your population to ensure the culture is supportive. We did that as employers over the last few years around breaking down the stigma around mental health, ensuring that people felt comfortable about sharing their experiences and knowing how to get the care they needed and having managers be supportive for those individuals. I think there's a lot that can be done to break down the stigma around other social issues that might be impacting employees in your populations, including transgender employees, raising awareness around social determinants of health in the community and helping employees address those factors in the community, possibly through volunteer opportunities to increase access to things like healthy food and access to care and things that might be impacting other employees in organizations' ability to do things like save for retirement or engage in the healthcare system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I think within these organizations, obviously, folks at the C-level make a lot of decisions around what direction benefits and towards go. And so, their appetite for change and truly embracing sort of a diverse array of benefit programs will really, be telling, relative to what the organization will wind up doing.
Yeah, it's really important to find champions in the organization who can get that attention, get you in front of the right people, and to have people tell their stories. Again, having people understand that the culture is going to be supportive enough for them so that they aren't afraid. And that's what happened a lot with breaking down the mental health stigma, is getting individuals to share their stories with other employees. And helping others feel comfortable to do so as well.
I would also imagine, because, with your global experience, that there are different parts of the globe that are a lot more progressive than others relative to, again, having more of a diverse benefit offering slate. I'm just curious, like, is the United States considered sort of a leader in that, or are there some other countries that you look at and you say, wow, these folks are really further ahead?
Yeah, you tend to see things, advancements, I'd say, in benefit offerings, or people pushing for change happening more often in the US and the UK, I'd say, tend to be leaders, and Australia as well. Australia was very progressive in the mental health space, as was the UK. What's interesting is when talking a lot to leaders about issues like mental health and talking about need for greater consistency and awareness, and putting programs in how, like access to telehealth in markets like Asia Pacific, often I would get pushback and say, oh, that's taboo. People don't talk about that there. And our employees were asking for it. I think there's a notion that some parts of the world may be further behind, that culturally things still may not be acceptable, but that's really changed. Awareness is up. People are talking about it and asking for help. Actually, right before I left BCG, our office in India was asking about adding support for gender dysmorphia to their medical plan. And that's not a market that you would think would be one of the first to inquire about it. So I think it's really telling that a lot of what we would have considered to be taboo conversations and markets are the norm now, and more the norm.
Yeah, no, it's really come a long way, so that's for sure. And, all programs within, HR, whether it be us, acquisition side of things or the total rewards, it's fluid, right? And it needs to continue to change and evolve as things continue to change and evolve in the world here.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that excites me about working in employee benefits. It's forever changing.
It's not static. And as a guy who's just more of a TA guy, you would think it kind of is until you dig into it and talk to people like yourself. But no, thank you for that. And so, last question, really, business has kind of slowed a little bit. Layoffs are on the rise here in 2023. In the face of these challenges, I mean, do you anticipate that organizations are going to be pulling back on implementing costly new benefit offerings? And kind of, if so, how can companies, stay competitive, retain top talent, keep employees engaged, from a benefit and wellness perspective in kind of a slowing economy?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. given, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say given the slowing economy, I would not expect a lot of employers to be implementing new costly benefits program. Everyone has an eye on their budget. However, I also don't expect companies to reduce their current benefit offering dramatically. As you know, in your business, right, the cost of turnover, the cost of disengagement, the cost of quiet quitting is very high. And to retain talent, employers need to offer a competitive benefits package in this environment. We discussed a lot about trends and benefits that employers can implement, and most of them can be done at a very low cost. Therefore, I think it's actually a perfect time for employers to reevaluate their benefits spend. They should be surveying employees, finding out what benefits are important to them. For the ones that they are offering now, what's the utilization? You could have a huge array of voluntary benefits and nobody's utilizing them. Then those are vendors that you're paying sometimes, minimum fees to. There's a cost of administration associated with them. That money could potentially be spent better or put into some sort of, like I said, lifestyle savings account that employees can use in whatever way they see fit. And what else would they like to see? What aren't you offering? And employers can utilize that data and reallocate spending in a way that's more impactful and meaningful to employees. There's some things employers can do during this downturn as well to help control costs. They can look at different ways of financing their benefit programs, the different mechanisms like multinational pooling or captives for really large employers. Also, I've found it helpful over the years to look for cross-border solutions. You can create greater efficiencies that way with vendors and insurers by having a larger pool of employees to include in that program, and therefore the cost should be less on a per employee basis. And I'm going to sound like a bit like a broken record, but the best way to offer flexibility and personalization, which I think is so important to employees this day, is through an LSA. And you should look to support work-life harmony. You should look to bring a DEI lens to benefits, practice empathy, create psychological safety during this difficult time. And then lastly, I'd say employers should look to enhance their benefit communications, remind people of what's currently being offered, and do it often. And try to tailor communications in a way that is meaningful to an individual. And that can be done by creating personas that individuals might be able to relate to, and then spotlighting benefits that might be most relevant to that individual. Employers should use multiple channels. Marketers do it all the time, right? We should too, to make sure we're reaching employees in a way that works for them. And that can be everything from old-fashioned print, video, TikTok, other ways of using social media to reach a really broad audience, as well as family members who might actually be the ones making decisions about benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the communication piece is critical, right? Because some folks, they sign up and then out of sight, out of mind. They don't go back to it. They don't see what other programs might exist. It's might have been something they flagged the day one when they're ready to start, but
Right.
it goes away, right?
And then life changes, right? You may have started as just out of college employee who, through your career, you get married, you have children, you move, different benefits are going to become relevant to you at different stages of your life. So if you can find a platform that helps you push out targeted communications to employees based on life events that are happening and possibly being entered in your HRIS system, that's a way of really delivering some meaningful information to that employee in the moment when it's most relevant to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. This has been very enlightening for me, for sure. And it's really interesting how complex benefit offerings are, and wellness and coupling that with just the time that we live in and how companies can remain competitive as it relates to attracting talent and keeping that talent. But it's clear that, total rewards and certainly benefits and wellness are a critical piece of the foundation for any organization that's looking to build a successful, positive, inclusive culture,
Yeah.
which involves as well.
Yeah. Something that I've said to many a CFO when talking about benefit programs and renewals and adding new features, plan design, or programs is it's not a cost, it's an investment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does show up on the P&L as a cost, but it's really an investment in your workforce, and it's a tool not only to bring people in to work for you, but to really attract and retain those other individuals, and to avoid the costs related to turnover. And I think often there's a misconception that making your benefits more inclusive will drive up your costs, and it actually ends up being a very small percentage over time. And there's a lot of programs, again, that employers may be spending money on now that individuals really aren't getting the value out of that they initially thought.
Right. No, exactly. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. And, your friends here at Wilmot have always thought of you as the top thought leaders in the benefit space in this area. So I'm thrilled that you were able to carve out some time and join us today, and wish you the most success on your search. And hopefully we'll be part of that if we see something really compelling for you. But certainly the next organization that can have you join them will be much better off, certainly from that perspective. So all the best, and again,
You're very kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, enjoy the rest of your week, and I know that we'll be in touch soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
You too.